Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Soraya Aho, ko Table Mountain Te Maunga, ko Lisbeth Te Awa, ko Footbruch Te Waka, ko Islam Te Iwi, and ko Te Awaroa Te Tūranga Waiwai. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I was born in the era of apartheid, where separation and segregation was the order of the day. So with that, we became politically aware of a lot of things, including the color of people's skin, what determines them and where they sit in the society. So this was the indoctrination that happened. I can actually feel a little bit blessed that we are Muslim, because as a Muslim we were taught that we need to stand up against any injustice. No man is better than another man, but through his humility. And so even how badly we were treated, we always showed the better sides of us. Living in District 6, where my father and mother settled, Christians were welcome to enter the mosques, and Muslims were welcomed into churches. It became also the conversation grounds for apartheid. So we would go to church, and then the priest would talk about the ramifications of apartheid at the time and politicize people in a way. Same thing would happen in the mosque. High school was quite interesting for us and intense, because we had to both be a part of a political movement as well as making sure that our academic achievements are met. When we became teenagers, we wanted more action, and we were the ones who caused action in the 80s and fought through the different struggles that we went through, those riots that we attended and stuff and be part of. All of that by 1994 came to an end when we had our first democratic elections. At that time I was probably about 29 years old. What was phenomenal for us was that our parents have never had the opportunity to vote. So my mother was already in her 70s, so it was quite emotional on that day when we took our parents to vote for the first time in their lives. That was one of the milestones in my life for me, to be able to have done this for my mother. From 1995, we had our children. There were still powers to be who decided what will happen post-apartheid. So-called white people decided who can come into the schools of those of color. And as educationalists, we just decided that this is rubbish. This is not to be. How can again people decide who goes into the schools, who does not go into the school? We had to look at what do we want for them, you know. And because we're also very sporty people, rugby is the first sport that we kind of leaned towards. All Blacks, that was our team since we were born. I mean, I come from a rugby family, and I can assure you I am not an All Black because I live in New Zealand. I've been an All Black since the day I was born, because the All Blacks had everything that we wanted in our communities for rugby to be like. So when we came to New Zealand, it was for the fact that we wanted a normal society for our children to grow up into. Schools where we could choose for our children to go to without being interrogated and interviewed whether you're the right person for it or not. And of course the All Blacks, rugby. And in 1997, my husband came to New Zealand, and then 6 months later we came. So we came like sort of in 98 as such. And since then our lives have only gone better. So thank you, New Zealand. When we as teachers came to New Zealand, I didn't have my degree yet. I was raising my children at the time, and so that was a priority for me to come to New Zealand and finish my degree. So after my degree I went to teach, and then I also wanted to become a leader after many years of teaching, and went to do my postgrad in leadership, and became a deputy principal at the time, and that lasted for just over 2.5 years. Then I decided that I wanted more and I got a principal's position in Australia at a Muslim school, an Islamic school, and where I spent around about 6 months, and after that I came back to New Zealand and was quite contented to go back into the classroom of teaching, and then now I'm in a very happy position of teaching at a multicultural school. I am a leader in the school, but I don't want to leave the classroom. As a woman, as a person of color, as a Muslim, I carry all 3 burdens with me all my life. That alone is a challenge. In living in the years of apartheid, you had to make the best of it, so you always had to aspire to be the best among the best so that you can undoubtedly be seen. When I came to New Zealand at first in the 90s, it wasn't that diverse. The minute you hear Ahmed, my husband's name, it's associated with terrorism. When he came, he had over 300 applications were rejected. We met up with some Ngāti Whātua through rugby again, and they adopted us and renamed us. So I became Aroha and Ahmed became Rangi. And I said to Ahmed one day, why don't you just put down Rangi and see what happens in an application? And so lo and behold, there was this application went to Wairoa, and he got an interview in Wairoa. Being a deputy principal and having a male as a principal was also a challenge, because one of the reasons why I left being a deputy principal was the male felt threatened by my existence, and over the years when I did do a proper job, the principal and I did not see eye to eye on things. I didn't have to, deal with discrimination, people looking down on you because you're not New Zealander. And in the 90s, more than in the 2000s, in the 90s, the one saying that will stick to me was that you're not now in South Africa, you're in New Zealand, which means your contribution wasn't worthy at the time, and you felt that in the 90s. In the 2000s, like today, New Zealand as a society has grown so much. I can tell you now that I don't feel what I felt in the 90s. However, in my community, my Muslim community, I find myself going back 100 years. It feels like women are still discriminated against in a Muslim world, which should never happen. So when I came into the mosque in New Zealand for the first time, I was really sad, because it was Ponsonby Mosque, a mosque that was at the time 50 odd years old. When I went into the mosque, there were nappies hanging where I was supposed to pray, and there was washing everywhere, and there was this little area that was probably the lounge of the imam who lived on the premises, and I felt like this is not what I'm used to, because Islam in Cape Town has then been 300 and odd years old already. In my generation, the mosque that I belonged to, I could go and lecture in front. I could go and sit down if I had something to share. And I'm talking about Claremont Main Road Mosque, the mosque that we belong to. Our voices as women were heard. So before I came to New Zealand, Islam for me has grown into the 21st century and in what it should look like for women. So we were clear on where we wanted, and then I stepped into New Zealand, and I felt like hundreds of years have gone, and we're still stuck in the zone where women have no voice. Women are put in the background, and they're just not seen. So if I take you back 300 and odd years, our forefathers who came as political prisoners to Cape Town were originally from Indonesia. So I wrote a book based on my travels to Indonesia. So post-apartheid people got quite a few opportunities and connected with the wider world and wanting to find out more about their heritage and where they come from. A lot of these documents were destroyed during apartheid and before then. One of our friends actually got this travel agency, and so he then took a group of people from Cape Town back to their roots in Indonesia, and he arranged this with the Indonesian government so that they could go through step by step what happened in the history of the people through that era when the Dutch colonized. When we went to Indonesia, we were seen as dignitaries. We were seen as the people who have come back home from 350 years later, you know. So we went through different places and different journeys throughout how our forefathers were captured and taken onto the ship, the Voetboot, and taken to Cape Town. But all along this journey, I went and I thought, one needs to record this. Not many people will get these opportunities to do what we're doing right now, and we need to capture voices. As I went along, I decided, no, I'm going to need to write a children's book when I come back. Yeah, when I came back, I wrote this book, and it was launched in 2018, 2 years ago, in Cape Town, and we had only 200 made, 200 of these copies, so that we could distribute them to schools, to Muslim children, and hand them out to mosques, at the mosques and that, so that we can make sure that children know their history. My advice for Muslim women would be to educate yourself. There are heaps of opportunities in New Zealand to do this. Work interdependent with your partners. Do not just accept what they're saying. Be free-minded, be open-minded, and integrate into the society in a way that you feel confident and comfortable as a Muslim woman. Contribute, do your bit for society, volunteer your services, work through there, and then establish yourself as an individual, as a family member, as a wife then, and as a career person.